Share your screen. Back where we were. We were. Not that anyone knows. What was that, sir?
Let's ask a question.
Oh, he's starting again. He's ready. We're ready to. We're ready. Yep. We're ready. Did we finish with this slide?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where I am. Thank you for your patience. So one of the last comments at our last forum back in December of last year asked as to why there were no alternatives provided to the Poughkeepsie Day site. We've gone through that above. We looked at 6 formal sites, which included engineering analysis, plans, and pros and con lists as to why the sites could or could not work. So now we're talking about cost. There was a lot of questions about why this project is costing what it is. We first looked at what doing a new project on a new site would cost. So new construction versus renovation addition. So on the left, you'll see a number of, let's see if I can get this to work right here. That's our target number of 69,473 square feet. That's what we need to give the police department and the courts all the required spaces they need for their functions and daily activities, as well as all code required egress points and exits. So all we did was take the sum of the two values for police new construction, which was a 2-story police building off the existing Gilkinson, and the renovation square footage of the existing Gilkinson building. We came up with 69,473. That's our benchmark for what new construction would cost.
I also want to point out the 21,518 is not the entirety of the Gilkinson building. There's remaining space that would be available for other town functions.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks. So if we transpose that into costs per square foot, at the time the slide was written back in December, we were looking at an average cost per square foot of just under $540 a square foot for new construction, where the combination of new construction plus renovation, we ended up with a lower number of the average values just above $500 a square foot. This put us into a comparative value of new construction costs for a police court building, 37.5 million, versus the renovation and new construction cost at Poughkeepsie Day School of 35,200,000. Should be noted, the Poughkeepsie Day School site also has an additional 38,000 square feet that has not been accounted for or tallied using yet. It's open to town use in the future or expansion if needed. Other items about the Poughkeepsie Day School site is it would offer a large recreation site for the residents and their families of the town of Poughkeepsie. It has several revenue potentials where there's an existing solar farm, which currently offsets the electrical usage of the entire Gilkinson building. And there's also a telecommunications site, which is bringing in currently about $43,000 a month in
85,000 a year.
85,000 a year.
Well, that's what it says here, if I'm reading it correctly. Excuse me, let me finish.
The combination of the two is the 85,000. So that would be a monthly savings for the operating value. So it would present about $1 million in operating savings per year. After 25 years, it'd be upwards of $20 million in operating cost savings. if we look at the numbers and include site work and property purchase, you're going to see that because of the price of the Poughkeepsie Day School site versus a guess at this point of unknown property that in our 4 years of research have yet to find, we'd be actually showing a higher delta of about $3 million, $2.5 million, I'm sorry. And again, we're still not taking into account almost 40,000 square feet of future square footage and all the cost benefits of the revenue generating facilities that are in place on site and operating today. It was brought up in December, or possibly, no, it was brought up in September at our first presentation. There was talk about the new police court building they built in New Paltz. We took time and gathered all the numbers from that New Paltz project for comparison. You can see photos here on the left with the green is what they bought. This is what they call a metal building. It's just a steel frame with basically sheet metal exterior siding. This is the after product. It was the best shot I could get without getting out to the site. I apologize about that. So it was a warehouse type structure. They turned it into the new police and courts building. This building per building code has to be what they call an essential facility, which means there's a catastrophic event. This building needs to still operate and continue running because it houses the police department. In our opinion, a metal building, unless it received major structural upgrades, might not make that category per the code, but we were unable to obtain plans. I'll go through cost escalations later, but I took their original number of 8 million, which was built in 2020, and I put it through basically inflation and matched it up with the middle of 2024, which is how we priced the Poughkeepsie Day School site project. So I matched the timeline of what the cost would be to build it to our current project. So they would be looking at apples and apples. So the 8 million turned into 9.5 basically after it was run through 4 years of escalation. So I have the $9.49 million number here, which gave us a square footage of 564 a square foot. So you think 9.5 million is a pretty cheap number. Why is this 150? So now we have to look at the size of the New Paltz Police and Court and the size of the town of Poughkeepsie Police and Court. But first, we'll take a look at the existing building, which I'm sure you all know about. You all know the police need to get out of this building. It's sinking in the ground. There was an underground fire several months ago. It's built on a landfill, and it is slowly deteriorating and will eventually collapse. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of when. On the right-hand side, you'll see a rendering of the two-story police addition we added onto with this little connector piece here to the existing Gilkinson building, because this needed to be a much more robust construction type to meet the essential facility code requirements. So the building we're proposing for the police department on this Poughkeepsie Day School site is what we call a permanent building. It's 75-year, 100-year building with little maintenance. The buildings that we see in Europe that are still standing for hundreds of years, buildings in our country that are now historical because they've lasted and they've passed the test of time. Metal buildings don't fall into that category. The court was designed with the help of special counsel and with the chief architect from the New York State Office of Courts. Poughkeepsie has an extremely robust court. At last count, some nights we're having 200 plus people in the courtroom at one time. And there's a long crack running through the center of the courtroom where the slab is starting to settle, as well as cracks at the entry. We're going to do questions at the very end, sir. Thank you. So the new design had 3 separate entrances for safety. It also provided separate secure space for what occasionally occurs where they have after-hour arraignments, where a judge has to come in, meet with the sheriff's department officer and arraign a prisoner. The police, we used our police consultants. His name is Michael McEwen. Bob has worked with Michael for.
Well, we've worked together closely since 2006. He has done 75 or at last count police station projects. So he has a deep understanding of all the parts and pieces required.
So all the spaces that were tabulated as required for the town of Poughkeepsie Police Department were based on days, not hours, days of interviews with all applicable staff member officers and different parts of the administration for the town of Poughkeepsie. Industry standard says it's between 400 square foot per officer up to 600. We're right in that lower range for Poughkeepsie day school design at 467. Here's the comparative numbers. This is where I guess the rubber meets the road for comparing the New Paltz site. If you come down here, New Paltz has 21 sworn officers. Town of Poughkeepsie has 84, 4 times the size. The court has 113 public seating. We have about double that at 223 based on the numbers I had mentioned earlier of courts running over 200 people a night. They said the building size needed for what they built was 16,800 square feet. We say our building requires 69,473 square feet. So if we look at the numbers, jump ahead. So our 16,800 square feet in the town of New Paltz at our increase factor of 4.14 puts us at 69,473. We're saying in the previous slide that the department, bear with me here. We're saying the department is essentially, wrong button, bear with me. We're saying the department's 4 times the size. They have double the court attendance. We need a building 4 times the size of what they did at New Paltz, which puts us right in the size of why this study came up with 69,000 and change square foot on the size that was needed. Missing anything?
No, there'll be questions and we could talk.
Yeah, okay. So here we're just looking at the costs per square foot, which is how construction is calculated these days. So the New Paltz came in at $564 per square foot. And again, our numbers coming in at an average number of $506 a square foot. And we have all the extra amenities we keep talking about. So it's 16,800 square feet. The escalated cost match was 9.4 million. But we know we're short 4 times the size for Poughkeepsie, so that puts us down at this line here. Which means if we compare the size of the New Paltz, I'm getting it to do what I want. You can see on that bottom line there. If we can get it to what I want, sorry, Bob.
You want to go backwards?
I want to get back to the slide. My cost number.
Is that the one?
Now forward. No. There we are. See that, folks. So the 9.49 million times a factor of about 4 puts the New Paltz project as it was built for their smaller size. We compare it to the town of Poughkeepsie size requirements, puts it actually $4 million higher than what we project the costs would be here at the Poughkeepsie Day School site. So from a comparative value, what seemed like a great deal in the town of New Paltz was a good deal because it was a quarter the size of what you need here. So it wouldn't work here. Okay, now we're going to talk about how construction costs increase. We all know construction escalation, another way of saying it is inflation. And we all know about inflation these days. Things are costing more every day. And when the pandemic hit, we ran into supply chain issues, we ran into worker issues. And as those started to come down, unfortunately, inflation started to come up. And what we're seeing now on average is 8 to 10% every year. Something increases in construction value. So something I built today that cost me $1,000 would cost me $1,100 in a year. So knowing the percentage from multiple sources we spoke with is between 8 and 10, we use 9. So here we are. As of today, at this presentation, the bond cost is 54.4. We're going to back out the property costs because that's not going to escalate. We don't anticipate that shouldn't escalate. That brings our adjusted bond cost down to 46.4 million. Now, we have things called soft costs. When you build a building, you have hard costs, which is what the contractors get paid. You have soft costs, what it costs to get a survey done, and what it costs to test the soil to see how much foundation. And then you have attorney fees. All these costs generally run in the anywhere from 10 to 20%. This was a moderate number used for the soft costs. So after we back those out, we're back down to our 38,352,000 number. That's as of today. So what I did was, and with Bob's assistance, we took a look at how much more this project is going to cost, be it here or somewhere else, with just the escalated price increases. So nothing changes, and it's expected that this should be the way to go forward. We have no bond increase number at the bottom there. 3 months. 3 months from now, this project will increase in construction costs by $0.86 million. So we're almost $1 million more in construction, which drives the construction cost to 39 million, the adjusted bond cost after soft cost to 47, and add in the purchase price of the property, we're at 55 million. From here, we showed it as a steady incline because no one really knows where inflation is going to be at in 6 months. So we took it out to a year. If a year from now, a decision is made to move forward with something, we've now increased the cost of the bond by $3.45 million. Construction costs are up over $41 million now. The bond is at 57 million 8. So 3.5 million just doing nothing and doing more studies, looking at different properties, another 3.5 million to get this done. So when I say to get this done, what this done is those two big binders that are out there somewhere. That's the work that was done to decide how many square foot per function is needed for all the police and town court functions. So that's the space we need. So that we know. So $3.5 million on a 12-month delay. If we take it out to 24-month delay, the construction cost alone will be over $7 million. And the bond will be upwards of $61.6 million. That's to give you an idea of what would happen in the next 2 years. Now, we've been doing this for 4 so far, and I know there's people out here that have been hearing stories about the police building for probably over a decade or 2. So, Bob?
Yeah, so I want to say, first off, we've been doing this kind of work for a long time, and many clients find themselves in the position of delaying the project and then asking how come it became so expensive. There's a neighboring community that I started working on in 2006, and they thought it was too much of a Taj Mahal. They're now going forward with a project that is, my numbers aren't completely clear in my head, but the size of the building that's being built is roughly half of the original size, and the cost is 50% higher than the original budget because of inflation. And inflation doesn't go away. Right now, the national turnover rate is, as Ken said, between 8 and 10. In the Northeast, it's closer to 10. And these are published pieces of data that are not, they're easy to track and explore. So the people who have expressed their concern about this project have talked about an assertion that it's going to raise your property taxes by 10%. And this, I hope to prove to you, is a incorrect description of what's going on. So here are 2 tax tables that, in this case, we're just going to look at the initial purchase of the land. There's 2 tables. One is, the upper one is if you live in Hyde Park, Fairview, and the other is if you live in Wappingers, Hamburg, which has to do mostly with the fire service provided. Yeah, okay. So if you look at this, what you have is, from the assessor, the average assessed value of a house in the town of Poughkeepsie is $340,000 and change. And that's the same whether you're in either of these 2 subsets of the community. So back in Hyde Park, Fairview, total taxes that you pay locally, town tax, school tax, fire tax, am I missing one?
Library.
Okay.
Library and their special assessments.
For that average house is $12,238. And if you live in that same house in Hamburg, Wappingers, it's $8,211. Now, the cost to amortize the $8 million to buy the property is $29 a year for that house. So as you see from the pie, it's a very small piece of your total property ownership tax bill. And so the tax increase for the land is $29. For those in the Hyde Park area, it's a 0.24% increase in your property tax. And if you live in the Wappingers, New Hamburg, it's 0.36. So now let's talk about the next phase of this thing, where the building gets built. We have the same data, the same house value, and in this case, the tax increase to cover that $46 million bond for that house that's assessed at $340,000 is $176 a year. So the tax increases for the house in Hyde Park, Fairview is 1.4% of their annual taxes. And in Wappingers, it's 2.14% of their annual taxes. And the actual dollar value to those people is the $29 for the land and $176 for the construction. So it's a little over 200. maybe 210, whatever that adds up to. So that's the actual tax data. And I'm happy to talk more about it because if we have more slides we can show in support of other questions that might come up. But I think we've presented what we intended to, and which is not to say we aren't wide open to any questions you have.
I'd like to ask anybody that would like to speak to come up to the microphone so we can hear. You can record it. It is being recorded on a private Zoom room. So it will be recorded. And if somebody doesn't want to speak, they can feel free to email my office, Jay Baisley, town of Poughkeepsie-ny.gov for any other questions or something that somebody brings up they don't feel they have an answer to. And we will get those answers for the next meeting that we will have. This will not be the final meeting like this because, as I stated before, we want to put a working group together. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have that. And that next meeting will most likely be at one of our town board committee to hold meetings to present then at a 7 o'clock at night meeting. So it'll be at one of those hours. So whoever would like to speak, come up, answer, try to keep it brief because there's quite a few people here. And we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. Ma'am? Would you come up to the microphone, please?
The other
My
one.
question is, on commercial, this one,
Yes,
Sorry about
Sorry.
that.
that's it.
my question is, are commercial properties, involved in this also? Are they contributing to, helping to pay for the bond
Yes.
issue?
Yes.
They are. And it's not just middle-class taxpayers that are handling, most of the tax increase.
No, it's everybody that pays taxes will be paying for that building. Nobody.
Okay, and the town itself has no property that would be available to place the police station on? There is no empty town property
No
that's
property
available?
that we own, no.
Okay, to my two questions.
And one question along the line of what you said about the tax, the residents in the village of Wappingers, there's an A fund and a B fund in the town, and the police department is in the B fund. And the village of Wappingers pays an A fund, so the village of Wappingers is not part of paying for the police department.
Related question. The site of the current port and police, is that gonna be standing there as a demolished building, or what's gonna happen to it? Eyesore, or what's happening?
It's currently up for sale. We've had a few people come in that are interested in looking at it. They haven't done their studies because where we're standing in this position now, we haven't moved forward with them. But we did interview a few people in the beginning that are interested in
Who owns the building?
town of Poughkeepsie. It's our building.
Okay, so we stand to do something there that, in effect, a new buyer would not want to, deal with this animal. The site is not a very good site.
No, but people have looked at the site in reference to warehouse space because there are restrictions on a site like that because it's on an old landfill. So housing and other buildings would not be allowed in there most likely unless it was a major, remediation project. So people that have looked at it were interested in a warehouse space, and
What would that be assessed at, that property?
we have to see what they did to the building at the time when they got it. And the sale of that building would go, towards payments.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, my major concern is this, is that the existing police station is, I think, in a hazardous area.
It's an old landfill, yes.
And wouldn't there be a priority? I mean, this study's been going on for 4 years now. Are we gonna allow the town of Poughkeepsie Police to stay in that location under the condition it is in now, like you're saying? I think it might be a health hazard. It might be a construction hazard. Is there anything, any action going to be taken to temporarily move out of that to avoid a major catastrophe if something was to happen?
Not this time to move them. It's definitely has structural issues in it. And the floor and stuff, we did do some work on it last year to fix it, but they need to get out of there because it is slowly deteriorating. As far as hazards, we've been doing air quality tests. The air quality test at this time, we've done, I think there's 3 of them so far. Air quality tests are okay at this time. But knowing it's on a landfill and it's deteriorating more and more, what's underneath it, the garbage and whatever else is under there, it is a top priority to get them out of there. One of the worst pieces of the building is actually a piece that we rent out in the back to McCollister Moving. That part of that has sunk in the back a lot. You can see where it's slowly working its way across. So that was the whole goal of getting this project moving forward, to get them out of there as quick as possible and get a location like something like this, that if we need to move them a lot faster, we can get them out quicker. It's faster to move and keep putting it off.
What is the time frame? I don't know how or when this proposal is gonna be approved, but what's the time frame in this action being completed? Is it gonna be a year, 2 years, 3 years?
Once we get the project in line to go forward, it's probably, if I'm correct, Bob, 18 months.
It could be 18 months. Yeah, we need at least 6 months to do the design work, and you probably need 16 months to do the construction work.
So
It's two and a third years. And of course, the construction work can't start on December 1st, so you have to try and time the thing, right? So that you start when the weather's on your
So again, what
your
we're saying is that the existing
condition will
town of
persist.
Poughkeepsie police are gonna be located there for quite a while under these conditions. And can a town really afford to take that chance that something major might happen and the people that are there, would you want your son or daughter to be located in that type of an area where there might be a health issue, or all of a sudden the bottom falls out of the building?
Good, I agree with you. And going forward is, we have to move forward. And that's why we had this meeting today, because we've been working on this for almost 4 years now. We started doing air quality reports like 2.5 years ago. So we need to get them out of there. We were watching the building slowly deteriorate. And if we do move them all of a sudden into a different location, you're probably going to end up adding millions of dollars to a move. And if that's what we have to do, we will. We are monitoring the building at this time.
Yeah, again, because the town would be liable if something happens under the conditions that the building is in now, and the town was aware of it. You got a major problem. So that would be my concern, is that this is all gonna take months, years, and you got these people in a hazardous area. So.
Michelle?
I want to be really frank about this. There are people on this board that are very concerned about the police where they are. And the community is concerned about the police where they are. It's a health problem where they are. But everybody that I have spoken to, well, for the most part, 90%, are not aware of what it will do when you have your telecommunications compound paying $85,000 a year, which will sicken those who are within 146 to 2,000 feet of this telecommunications compound. The police, I guess, are planning to be 300 feet from this telecommunications compound. The OET Bulletin 65, which addresses the FCC compliance of towers in the range of 1900 to 3500 megahertz, says 30 minutes of exposure. The Cityscape, our wireless consultant, has probably not spoken about this, but we're talking about a 30-minute average, which is what the FCC recommends, and beyond that, they don't. So the police will be able to work for about 30 minutes under FCC compliance, and the residents, not so much. If they're within 2,000 feet of this telecommunications facility that's paying for your construction costs, okay? They're out of luck. So I'm sure that the residents who are informed are willing to have you guys pay for their property, pay for the property value that is declining, probably up as much as 25% when they choose to sell. Okay, so yeah, write that down, property value questions in proximity to something, this telecommunications compound. And if you'd be willing to pay for their medical costs going forward for as long as they live, if they can live healthily at all, you know, maybe they'd talk to you. Maybe they'd say, yeah, okay, pay for my property value decline when I decide to sell this thing that I've been working most of my life to keep, and, you know, pay for my medical bills. Now, is Mitchell and Associates prepared to do that? Or do they even recognize that there are health effects from RF microwave radiation? And our friend, RFK Jr., okay, is going to be involved in this issue extraordinarily soon. And he will be coming out with Peter McCullough, who's one of the leading attorneys, and the town will be liable. Okay, so this is, I mean, I think this is crazy. I think the health excuse and putting it here is either ignorance or hey, we don't care so much because what our design is to have this huge police facility headquarters for Dutchess County. And we want it here in our town, and this is the best spot for it, we think. The traffic and feasibility and environmental assessment form, I question those, I really do. I mean, you were looking at the Poughkeepsie Day School with 35 students in it. That's what the feasibility study was based on. And then plus, you know, everybody else that you're projecting to be on there. I don't know what you're doing with the I mean, I don't live in that area, thank God. But the traffic, you know, I have a real question about that. And the full environmental assessment form is not complete. If you go look at it, we're talking about some hazardous materials. I mean, they may not be materials in the material sense, but that telecommunications compound is going to be chugging out all kinds of things based on the fact that you want that 80, or the town wants that $85,000, you know, to help pay for all that. So that's what I question, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for allowing me to comment.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Fiella. I live right along Spackenkill Road, on Lynn Road, actually. Every evening and morning, I videotape the traffic. And I'll be happy to share the videos with you. So the concern of the community, first off, comes with your master plan. We're questioning, why is there a need for the town courts to be moved with the police? We're not questioning the fact that the police need a new location. The other thing, I took the time to read the over 300 pages of your plan. And based on the full environmental assessment, this is speaking back to what that gentleman said about the air quality and such. The total excavation period is anywhere from 12 to 18 months. You have to dig 4.5 feet of bedrock and blast for 12 to 18 months. The total construction period is 12 to 24 months to be determined as needed. That's verbatim on your report, okay? Now, it was question F on page 6 of 13 of 312 pages says, does proposed action include one or more resources of air emissions, including fuel, combustion, waste, incarceration, or other processes? The answer you gave was no. That's incorrect. How could that be possible when you're digging bedrock and you're going to have heavy equipment on the property? Most of the area surrounding Poughkeepsie Day School are private homes. There is a school, there is a library, there's a camp, there's an assisted living directly across the street. A lot of people have compromised respiratory issues, and you're blasted. And you said no on your air quality, on your full environmental assessment. Even the traffic assessment for the full environmental, this is not the right location for this project, because the community will be dealing with higher increase in traffic. We will be living it with all the issues with the air quality, and it's just not the right location. The other thing, there's also there is a wildlife. You have it's called the Indiana bat. It's a endangered species on that location. I don't know how you're planning on handling that one. And also regarding the taxes. So you did mention the taxes will be increased about $200 per home per year. You failed to mention the community. That is the 25-year period that we'll be paying this back, right? 25 years of over $200 a year. So that's in lieu of if we need road work done or any other services, right? We'll be paying this project for 25 years. So again, the discrepancy from us is the police need a new location. They don't need to wait 2 more years. And we don't need the courts, and we don't need to we feel that paying for the courts to move at an exuberant cost at our health and well-being and changing our community, it's not for the benefit of us, and you're just not listening to us. Thank you.
I will try to be brief. Can you hear me? When you started this project of saying we've got to build a new police station, I'm sure you ideally what would be needed. And the question I ask is, how much acreage would a police station for the town of Poughkeepsie need? And does it match the day schools?
It's a question. You've asked a question. If we were looking for a piece of ground to put the police and court facility on and the associated parking,
Ideally, what would you need in the way of land?
well, I don't know
One
that
acre.
particularly, but if I had to guess at something, I would say 4 acres would be a good parcel.
How big is the day schools?
Hmm?
How big is the day schools?
Bigger than that. Oh, it's about 30.
30 acres. 30 acres.
30 some odd acres. But
Okay.
part of what happens with the school, if this goes forward, the needs for the police and court leaves 30 some odd thousand square feet of that building unclaimed, which allows the gym that's there to remain as an amenity for the community, the theater. There's a large kitchen area. There could be senior citizen activities or some other kind of community activities going on. There are athletic fields that could be available to you. This could become a viable asset to the community at no incremental cost above getting a raw piece of land to start with and building police and courts.
Well, you're hiding the police station actually there.
Well,
Who's figuring in the costs for the road improvements?
which road improvements?
The road leading there is not satisfactory for the police department there. And the Spattenkill Road, making a left turn on there to go to the high school is a difficult thing. So there's gonna have to be a cost for improving the road situation, Spattenkill and Boardman. Who's paying for that? You haven't figured that in.
The cost was in the study for that, and we would have to address that with the state at the time. That Spatkill is a state road, because they do have in there, I think it was a left turn lane. So there are changes made for that. And just to add a comment that was said before, the court has to move also, so people know. you know, whether it's the same location, or not, the court is in the same building as the police department. Somebody stated that the court didn't have to be moved. The court is in the same building.
Well, the road situation is not satisfactory for a police station there currently, and so there needs to be improvements there. You went rather quickly on what you did searching for a site. It seems to me that today, the ideal spot would be that land between Route 9 and IBM's main building. Have you talked to them about that?
We did originally, we talked to them and IBM was going through a master plan. It was not available. IBM has come back to us in the last couple of weeks, maybe the last couple of months, about some different properties they may finally want to put on the market. But when we did talk to them about that building originally, that piece of property had wetland issues
Maybe
on it
you ought-
also.
maybe you ought to talk to them now. That's an ideal place. They can come in off of IBM Road.
It absolutely was. Yeah, I agree.
But that would come with full new construction costs,
Well,
which
certainly, well, you've listed the construction costs.
we've,
Well,
And there's
but-
another spot up across from Maris, next to Job Lot. There's a big acreage there that's available. Had you ever looked at that?
Yeah, that's actually a contaminated site.
I'm sorry?
That, the one next to Job Lot is a contaminated site. It's contaminated. It's contaminated.
Contaminated?
Yeah.
Really?
So let me just say something to that. The parcel you talked about initially near IBM was a target site for us back in the 2019 study. And but it became unavailable. And so the thing sat and the cost escalated. You know, it's just, I don't know how to reassure you that because of what we do year after year, we see each community facing the same problem. The project becomes more and more unaffordable, if you want to look at it that way, the more you postpone doing it. So what you have the opportunity to do here is for more or less the same price of doing a building somewhere else, you get all these other amenities thrown in to the deal. The extra space in Gilkison, the Kenyon House that could have a future use, the athletic fields, things like that. There is no perfect solution.
and there is no quick solution. It was mentioned earlier,
know
why
that.
can't we just move the police? And
What are
even
you
if,
gonna do with the old police station now? After, suppose the police are moved, what are you gonna do with that building in there?
Well, there was discussion about using it for warehousing. There can be remediation, there could be under slab ventilation like you would do if there was radon in the ground.
Mm.
You know, the slab, much of the slab would have to be demolished and redone. It would have to be treated as if it were floating because what's underneath it is unstable. The biggest problem with those kind of landfills, you know, imagine yourself on a raft on a lake. The entirety of the bottom of the raft has the same amount of upward bearing capacity from the water. Here, it varies immensely based on what has decayed at what rate. So it becomes tricky. And yet, for someone who needs a warehouse at the right price, they would probably make it work.
Understand, most of the discussion today was on costs. I think there is a general feeling also that that site is not satisfactory for a police station.
Which one? The Poughkeepsie
day
Day School?
And that's not your job.
Right.
Go talk to IBM again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for holding this public meeting. My name is Rebecca Edwards. I live in Ward 6. And I have a few questions. First of all, for the architects, thanks for the updates. Will the slides from this meeting be posted? Okay, good. And the second question I had is there have been a number of concerns about the plans now apparently combining recreation and the police station in one site. Much of the sort of promotion before this meeting was about recreation and the potential athletic fields of the uses of the fields. So I think my question is whether revised drawings will be put out, or whether you're using the same drawings that were presented in November. From the site plan, it appears that there might be a theater camp on one side and there's 2 soccer fields on the other side. And in between would be the police station. And an officer gets an all points bulletin and needs to get out of there quickly is not going to have an easy time doing that when parents are picking up kids from camp. And
Rebecca?
the drawings that were done in November showed a good portion of those sports fields being paved over for a parking lot. So without new drawings, it's hard for us to quite understand how you're envisioning those 2 separate uses for a site, essentially putting kids and criminals in the same place.
The situation for police response from the building is usually rare. Police are out in cars. Could it happen? Yes. The police driveway will be completely independent, not connected to or used by people going.
Again, I think revised drawings or further consideration of those mixed uses of the site would be helpful. I know in talking with the chief, he does say that they do sometimes get an all points bulletin and everybody needs to get out of there in a hurry.
See, I worked
So-
in the police business for a lot of years, so I understand that probably better than most. And yes, I was a policeman here in the town of Poughkeepsie. And yes, bad calls come in. The cars are usually out on the road, except during shift change, when the oncoming goes out and the offgoing comes in. That happens 3 times a day. They would be at headquarters then, or at the substation. Yes, could it be a problem? Sure, it could. It's going to have its own separate driveways, own access out to Cedar and then out to Spacken Hill Roads.
Okay.
The traffic lights can be tripped. None of that is negative to this site. Okay?
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And again, my question is whether we're still working with the same drawings that were presented in November, or if there's a revised conception of how the site would be used and what would go where. It would be helpful to see those revised drawings.
Rebecca, there are drawings out there because the exit for the police department is on the far left side. They actually have their own exit and their own entrance because for that reason, there is an in and out that is out there. Whether it wasn't actually in the final version, we'll make sure it gets out there because that was an issue. And currently our police court facility has a community room in it, which now and has, since it's been open, has been used for youth. I mean, as much as last month, we used it for spring recess camp.
Okay, great. That's helpful. So then, if I understand correctly, we're still working with the drawings that were presented in November. There hasn't been a change from those drawings. Okay.
Not at the time.
And has any, since November, this is a question to the architects, have you given any consideration or made plans for any other sites than the Poughkeepsie Day School?
No, because no other sites have been offered up as being available.
Okay, but the focus since November has been then entirely on the Poughkeepsie Day School, and the drawings now remain the same as they were then.
Yes, and the drawing then had this separate drive for the police at the left-hand most edge of the site, so that there would not be this crossing that you're concerned about.
Okay. I know a number of people, I just promised to speak for people who could not be here today, who do have traffic concerns and who I know are going to send videos to the supervisor and to board members and to others. Also footage of accidents on Spacken Hill and other traffic material. And I just promised that I would speak to that. And I have 2 more questions briefly for the supervisor. The first is, when I served in the county legislature, whenever there was a borrowing of any substantial sum, we received a chart that showed what was being borrowed, the amount that would be borrowed, and then the amount of the cost of interest and debt service on that debt over the period of the borrowing, so that you could see it's usually about 1/3 more for the cost of the interest and the debt service on that debt over time. Can we please have a chart of how much the town would
Yes, we have
borrow?
that chart.
Do you have that chart? And that could be made public?
Yes.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. And then my last question is for the supervisor, and we'll follow up and get that chart. That would be great. My last question is whether you have a timeline for the working group that you're intending to put together and when you expect them to report back to you.
I'm hoping if the input from today's meeting comes out and there's a decent amount of people that want it, we're hoping at the next town board meeting to be able to announce and talk to town board members between now and then to have a group put together, because the next meeting will be next Wednesday. So I don't know if we'll make it by next Wednesday, but if not, one of the following meetings real soon, because we don't want to hold this up any longer than possible.
So my question is, when would that working group finish its work and report to you or make recommendations? How long do you envision the working group operating?
It would depend on if they come up with different locations, because one of the things that has come up over the time were some different locations. If somebody has something, we hope they can get the working group done in like 90 days and they can come back to us and have a full report. But if multiple properties do come available, because IBM has finished their master plan as one of them, and one of the residents has sent a couple of different properties in to discuss, that would make the deciding factor. We don't want to hold this up and drag it out any longer, because it's Mitchell Associates said, A, it's the cost, and B, is to get them out of there, as quick as possible. So if anybody has any, as we stated before, please bring them to the forefront.
And just to confirm that working groups meetings will be public? They'll be open to public
Yeah,
and they'll be reporting to the board regularly?
correct.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jim Beretta. I live at 29 Colburn Drive, which would be right across Spackenkill Road from this, and we deal with the traffic problems there every day. And it is bad. Just tonight coming over here, which was about 3:45, I had a person across the road that was heading west stop and let me in. I had, this is very unusual, but a person coming out from Boardman Road that was heading east stopped to let me out. And everything worked out and I got out of there. Otherwise, you wait. It's a very dangerous intersection. This is going to be a disaster for us. There's no other way to put this. I've been in front of this board before when this project came up. I said it then. I was opposed to it then. I'm opposed to it now. It's going to be a disaster. Right now, on Boardman Road, you have the library. You have Lord's High School. We have buses in and out of there. Okay, so twice a day, there's buses, there's pickups and drop-offs, and there's all the students that have cars. And if you drive past over there, that parking lot is full. So there's a lot of students and people in the mornings, whether they're going to the high school or to the other places, they don't want to wait in line. They go up the shoulder of the road. So if you are trying to get out, like I have to do a lot of times, and make a left, and somebody is nice enough to let you in, you have to be careful. You don't stick your nose across the lane because people come up that shoulder. Okay. So right now we have the library, we have Lord's High School, we have the landing. All right. So that gets people in and out, visitors, workers. Plus, there are about 300 EMS calls a year to the landing, and it averages out to pretty much once a day. So the fire trucks come up, they go in there. Noise pollution is another thing too, right? So we have the sirens coming up there now. We hear them. The more development that gets done, the more you hear noise, the more the noise travels. And by the way, Lord's High School, when they have a game over there, we hear the PA system. When Spackenkill has a game, we hear the PA system. Right now, there was a lady here before that did the research about the blasting and the rock removal and the hammer. Right now, we have the woods of Cliffdale going in behind our house. They've been hammering down there constantly. We normally have a fairly quiet backyard. It hasn't been that way for months now with all this rock hammering. And I was over at the library the other day and I could hear the rock hammering from behind my house over at the library. So I know that from our house, if this goes on for 2.5 years, we're going to be hearing all that construction, rock hammering, plus all that traffic. Also over on Boardman, you got the Hudson Valley Credit Union now. You have the carriage houses over there. I know Sadie's just moved out. I don't know what's moving in. In fact, it looks like some sort of a nursery school over there. PDS would be moving out. PDS is actually very low impact. And, they might have a game after school or something like that. They don't really use that field very much. But with the town hall going in there, so with the town hall going in, you're going to add all the daytime traffic for the people that, work at town hall have to come and go. You're going to have all the residents and business people that have to come in. You're in terms of evening hours, which you're adding now, evening traffic. If you put over there, the fields for the games and things like that, we're going to have now evening traffic. I don't know how much noise that's going to generate. Then you have meetings at night, you have the court at night, camps. If you're going to add camps, now this thing is going to be going, during the summer. There's been talk of a pool. I'm not sure if you're putting in a pool. There's, I don't know whether that's in there or not. I know somebody mentioned a pool. I don't know. The shooting range. I know what a shooting range sounds like. That noise travels.
The police department does all the firearms training on the other side of the river at an old tractor site.
So there's going to be no shooting range here.
Jim, there's an indoor shooting range currently on the plans. And also the town hall is not going there. Town hall is not moving.
Town hall staying here.
Town hall is staying here. We stated that back.
So what's going over there? Just the police?
Police court, and if we have the space, recreation. It's a police court. We looked at the original price of town hall. We took town hall right off the table. Like originally, Arlington Fire was supposed to be one big study. We took Arlington Fire off the table. As I stated, the first meeting in December, town hall is not going anywhere this time.
And there's a decent possibility
Right.
the shooting range doesn't end up being.
Okay, you said town hall's not going any place at this time. Now the gentleman that did the plan before said that they were charged with looking at it for what you need now and what you would need in the future.
And
So, are we looking at
restate
town
the
hall?
facts, Jim.
Yeah, sure.
They were charged at going looking for town court, police court facility. They did their job. When we saw the price, we said moving town hall was not necessary. It would come off the table. What they did as a study, what they have on the table was everything that would possibly fit there. Their study was to see if it would all fit, it would all go in place. It all fits. Now comes to the time when we go and start the design, if that's where we end up, that things may disappear. We start looking at maybe the shooting range goes, maybe part of a parking lot goes, maybe part of the centerpiece or Saber Recreation goes to the court instead. Once you really get into the nitty gritty to what it is, we tried to get the most we could for the residents out of this. But when you look at it, it's like anything else. You start building a house, you look at, you want all these fancy appliances, and you start taking things out that you don't want. Just like the cost for this project, and somebody else had made the statement, yeah, it's $200, but it's like when you buy new police cars, you don't buy something else. It doesn't mean that full 200 is going to be on there. If we don't touch anything, and we just put that on the tax rolls, that's where that number comes from. It doesn't mean that we're not paying off bonds. We have some bonds coming off this year. So that effect is not fully what it's going to be there. But you never know what's going to happen in the world either with inflation rate.
Right.
And also just to be clear, they had mentioned, someone asked whether they looked at other sites, the architects. We're not having them fully vet every single site that pops up on the radar because the cost wouldn't make any sense. If the town is looking at other sites. If a site gets to the point where we're seriously considering it, then it would be something that the architects would look at, but it wouldn't make any sense financially to have them look at every time somebody sends an email, say, all right, you guys try to figure out if you can put this entire project in there and give us a full study on it. That's not occurring. But the town is actively looking at every option. And if we do get to the point where we're seriously considering another option, that's when the architects would get involved with that piece of it. So.
All right, well, what I'm hearing here is a deal of fluidity that we really don't know what we're getting there. I mean, I heard some stuff you said is coming off the table, but I
said possibly coming off.
possibly. All right, so
Jim, they had to start somewhere, and what
All
they
right.
started
No, I
with was
understand.
a plan of what we needed and where it would fit.
right.
Now we go from there on, as Stefan had just said, if we found another piece of property that was, say, more affordable, it could be done, we have the groundwork to move it to somewhere else. And I've stated this 10 times over. Originally, that White House out front was supposed to be our senior center. It was down, designed, built, and somebody had already donated the money. At the last minute, we found the center over there in Abe's Way, and we moved the project at the last minute. If somebody comes up with different ideas in different spots, we're not going to run, chase, and spend all kinds of money on it, but we will look at it. people have sent them over. I had one resident, she's been very good about sending different things over. We have looked at a couple of them. So if anybody has other spots that they think are viable, we will look at them. And we put this working group together. It's an ideal thing for them to look at.
And the value of what we've already put together through the architects is that now we have something that we can apply to other locations. Before, we didn't have anything that fully vetted the needs of the town as far as police facility, court facility, town recreation, town hall. This is fine at this point in time. What we are looking for is police court facility, but we have the groundwork and all the base, the work that we need to do to be able to look at this site as close as we need to and other sites as they come up. So we've gotten very far. We need to get to the point where we make a move and make a decision. But this is part of that process. So listen to people, hear what everybody has to say. Any given day, somebody shows up, has a better idea, better location, more information, government works better. So I like this process. I like the fact that you can show up on Wednesday night and talk at a board meeting, your local town board meeting, and be heard. And we do listen. So.
Okay,
I'll just, say that any net add, especially the scope that we're talking about here, will be a disaster for us. And Councilman Carlos, you said about the police that they're out in the field and they don't always respond, and that certainly has logic to it. You also said that there's, they go in and out of there for shift changes, and that's all a net add. So, all right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Good. One of the questions that I had is, this meeting took place at 4 p.m. Why couldn't we have this meeting at 6:30, 7 p.m. when some of our town residents are out of work and we're able to come here? Doing this at 4 p.m. gives me the assumption, right? Gives me the assumption that it was done on purpose so that less people are here. Thankfully, the residents showed up. But if we would have done this at 6:30, 7 o'clock, at a time where people are coming home, like myself, I work in Brooklyn. I took the day off to be here. There's people that work in the city, especially in the town of Poughkeepsie. Many of them do. We could be here at 6:30, at 7:30, at the regular time that town hall takes place. Why did this take place at 4 p.m. and not later?
Our board meetings are generally at 7 o'clock, and honestly, 7 o'clock is good for some, bad for others. I have young kids. 7 o'clock is problematic.
I got a 1-year-old, I know that, but
And so the reality is, there is no perfect time. The intention was to have it on Zoom to get as many people involved.
I'm not looking for a perfect time.
But
I'm
there'll
looking for a
be
better time.
additional meetings, and the idea is to try to loop as many people into the process. But again, the 7 o'clock audience, I guess, we hit every Wednesday. So
Yes, but the architect presentation was today at 4 o'clock.
the architect has made at least 1 or 2 presentations at our 7 o'clock board meeting. So
Okay. Secondly,
And Jung Ho, just so you know,
Yeah, go ahead.
I did state earlier on that we will have meetings of the working group, most likely at the committee of the whole meetings, which are held at 7 p.m.
gotcha.
And we thought Zoom would be the answer today, and there was issues with Zoom, but for people that do work, we thought it was the way to be, and this still is taped on a private Zoom meeting, which we will publish also.
Secondly, I think many of the residents that spoke near the Poughkeepsie Day School spoke about the traffic. Of course, there's concerns there on nice days, but what about when the heavy winters come? What seems to be the solution there? You spoke about Spackenkill being a state road. It'd be great if we move on with the Poughkeepsie Day School, that a study and a presentation is given to us about how you're going to circumvent the traffic that's going to take place and how you're going to reduce the risk of kids getting hit by cars, car accidents taking place. That'd be wonderful to have. Is there any talks with the state on doing some type of study like that in a presentation before we even move on to say, okay, we want to start building at the Poughkeepsie Day School?
Right now, currently, there's a traffic study. We have not gone to the next step.
Okay.
And as I stated before, and I saw you did come in later, you
Yes.
said you have a location, you are our county legislator. Nice to see you show up. And if you do have a piece of property in your district, feel free to reach out. We've told anybody tonight, some properties weren't available. A lot of properties that people have offered up, we've called and they're just not properties that they want to sell. But if there's a piece that you think is out there, feel free to call. We will look at it.
Do you guys have a list of the properties that were seen and then
There is a
Kind of,
list in the first study.
there was the rest?
There's a list.
Is that list public? So that people know that,
Yep.
okay, these are the sites that we've looked at. If that is a site that somebody was thinking about, then we can say, okay, we can cross that out. We're not gonna even
Yep.
explore that.
Once the working group gets together, they'll have all that information also, so. And that working group.
Question for you.
Go ahead, brother.
What did the jail end up costing? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, the jail, a lot more than I didn't agree with, 200 million.
200 million? Okay. What about the U? What's that?
The U, about 50 to 75.
Okay, yeah. Well, and it's just because you're happy to be here.
Yeah,
I try to-
go ahead, man.
I try to find that information out there and I can't find it.
Yeah, no, well,
So,
ask me,
so
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. As well, have we looked at the Golden Corral space? The Golden Corral used to be,
It's a,
is that not all?
even if you look at the way that building is situated, it's a weird fit to begin with.
It's a weird fit, too. Okay.
Yeah, and part of that property goes back into that neighborhood and
Mhm.
there's like a back end, which is a residential piece of it.
Okay.
Which it's like literally goes back into the neighborhood. So it,
That just wouldn't
yeah,
fit
and
the
it's not-
specs of.
and here's the thing, if people have good ideas, even if they're on the list, it's fine to bring it back around to take another fresh look at it because what I think is there isn't a perfect fix. There's not a
Right. Oh,
perfect
indeed.
place.
I think-
And no matter where we put it, someone's gonna live near it. And someone's gonna have to deal with traffic from it. And where we currently have it, honestly, I'd be sitting out there if it was way back when and questioning, why would you put it there? It's a landfill.
Right.
Then when you drive in there, it's like a roller coaster. It's
Indeed.
got smoothed out, but so we're trying not to do that ever again in this town. We're trying to get it right. So you can call us, email us, talk to us. If you have better ideas, let us know. And there's no bad ideas because an idea is something we look at, figure out and say, all right, no, it's not going to fit. I mean, somebody had mentioned the old town hall that's in a flood plain. I think that building is flooded. The county owns it and the county deeded to us. There's restrictions on that, but there's a whole bunch of, like, we keep looking at all different places. Some of them look great from a distance, and then when you focus in, it's a problem. And it could be the land, it could be the building, it could be who happens to own it. But if there's a better idea, there's a better idea. But at some point, we got to pick something, make a decision, move forward, deal with our police court facility, get it moved and get it done. And I think we'll probably end up with a situation where not everybody will say this is the best thing ever, but hopefully not everybody says it's the worst idea ever.
Well, I agree with that. I don't think the day school is perfect, but I do understand the urgency that we need to get
Yes.
our law enforcement officers out of there. What is the contingency plan that would take place? Let's say if the police officer station where it's at now caves in.
Well, that's good. And here's one of the things. Part of me feels like we should own something now because the contingency plan, if we don't own anything, is to try to find somewhere big enough to move a police and a court facility. The cost of that, way back when we started to do, we had a structural engineer come and look at that and look at what our options were. And the cost of moving everything temporarily to fix that building over there was horrendous. At that time, I insisted that we have a structural engineer monitor that building. I want to know all that was wrong with it. The person who was a supervisor at the time, she said she didn't want to know about it because she didn't want to have to deal with the cost. I thought that was a horrible idea. Whether it's good or bad, tell me the news. When somebody says you want the good news or bad news, just tell me what it is.
Right.
So the cost of moving that would be horrible. If we owned Poughkeepsie Day School, just the land, just the 8 million, and didn't do anything else, we'd at least have a contingency plan. But we have to figure out what we're going to do well before we ever get to the point where somebody gets hurt over there. From what the structural engineers say, that's not anything in the near future, but I don't ever want to get near that. Buildings collapse. The
Right.
building collapsed in Florida, the condo complex. And when you looked at it, people said, oh, they did this, they looked at that, they looked at this, and then they didn't act. We're like, it's not fun to have to take these actions to spend this money because it's nothing, you're not driving around a fancy new car. You're buying a building to build a court and police station.
Right.
It's like building a jail. So, things have to get done. We have to do it. We have to take the responsibility to do it. And again, whatever you can add, whether it's from the county level, that's just an individual, you're driving through town and you go, oh, what about this? Send a text, send an email. Just
And people have done it all along, as we said, is, the county built a jail, they build a building that's gonna last. The bottom line is, we don't want to be here again. Over in that police station, we just fixed the roof year after year after year, and the stuff that's there is deteriorating. And I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but originally the number to fix the building, just to bring up the standard, was in the millions to bring it up to where it was. So we have to move forward, and we have talked to IBM if there was an emergency, if something did happen, that there was at one point Central Hudson retrofit a part of their building down there. So we do have something in the back burner if we really had to go somewhere, that would be it. But the cost to move them would be astronomical even temporarily. So it's better, I think, to get them in the right place now to go forward.
Indeed. So I would appreciate that list of sites that have been seen.
It's on the report.
It's on the report there? Wonderful.
It's a 900-page report.
Okay. No
No,
problem. Just
and
point me
it's
to the page where the list
And we've
is.
also reached out to the state and federal legislators to try to get some funding for this.
Okay.
You know,
Great.
they haven't given us anything yet, but within the process of purchasing and
If you
moving
guys need my
forward.
help with that as the county representative, I would love to put my name.
We'll be asking everybody for letters of support. when the
Okay,
time
cool,
comes.
no problem.
And as far as I know,
I'll be on the record and say.
any information I have is out on that website. So you can access the same thing that I can access
Cool.
at this point. So as a town board member, there's nothing that I'm seeing on the back end that's different from what you're seeing. So it's all out there. And that's what the intention of this is, to try to make sure everybody has the opportunity. I wanted the architects here, not Zoom, not anything else, because I want you to
appreciate that.
see them,
Thank
talk
you,
to
guys.
them and interact with them. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully collectively, we do a good
Get
job.
something. Because I think we all agree that police need to be somewhere safer. I
Yep.
think that's,
Absolutely.
none of us are saying that doesn't happen.
And this project did start with a grant from the county. Originally, the original study, the very first study,
Right.
everything was a shared service grant with the county
Indeed.
to move it
This
forward.
working group that you guys are thinking about putting in, how are you reaching out to people? How is that getting out to residents?
We've announced it the last 3 or 4 town board meetings.
Okay,
We announced it here again today.
wonderful.
And I've had 3 or 4 inquiries sent to me after
Oh,
we emailed
beautiful.
Friday
Good,
today.
good, good.
You know, I don't know the people, so I call and reach out and see what their interest is. You know, we don't want a huge group. We want a group that's gonna be able to get things accomplished, and, you know, maybe some different bodies with different skill sets from the community that can do it, and that they have the time. Because time is the essence. We can't be just putting meeting off for month after month. It's gotta get accomplished and get done.
Okay, good. Appreciate all the time. Thank you guys so
Thank you.
much. Appreciate it.
Two questions. First of all, has it been thought about to provide public transportation to the Poughkeepsie Day School for people who don't have cars and need to get to CART? And the second question is, to the architects, in your experience, how many of projects like this actually come in on budget and how many come in over budget? Thank you.
As far as
You want to do?
I'll answer public transportation. We could go back to the county if we do pick this as a location and ask them. Originally, there was a bus route on Boardman Road that went to the library and went over as far as the airport. But it got almost zero use, so the county took it away. So if we felt there was something wrong, we could go back and readdress that with the county. I think the county transportation has been very forthcoming with a lot of their bus routes and different changes.
Okay, so with regard to your question about cost of construction, there are two pieces to this. One is, does the estimate get met on bid opening day? And then does that number get held through construction? Okay, so the first half is difficult to answer because of the volatility of the market that we're at. Okay, as Ken said earlier, 9.5%, 9%. A year and a half ago, it was 12% inflation. So we're chasing numbers. Every time we look at an estimate, it's sort of like our stomach drops, if that's the phrase. So we think that we have accounted for enough contingency, and we use professional estimators who all they do day in and day out is estimate. We think that the numbers that we have will prove true. Now, we just had a job maybe a month ago, bid out in Lisbon, Connecticut. We do a lot of fire stations. That came in at exactly what the estimate said. We have a project in Beacon. The bid opening is going to be next Monday. So we'll have another marker as to whether the estimate and the bid was the same. Now, on the second half, for the last maybe 10 years, maybe it's 8 years, we have not had a project where the change orders, are you familiar with what the change, have exceeded 1/2 of 1% the bid value of the building. Okay, And what is that attributable to? A tight set of drawings and the willingness to hold the contractor's feet to the fire. And those are two things that we feel we do very well. So I'll have a better answer for you on the first half after next Monday's bid opening at Beacon. But beyond that, the market is whimsical. The job in Connecticut, a month and a half or 2 months earlier, bid in $1 million over budget. And there was a lot of soul searching, what to do, what to do, what to do. And the decision was, let's just put it out there and say, and just announce right at the front of it, this is our budget. And it came in at the budget. The contractors are they're whimsical in the way they price things. They put a lot of effort into coming up with a price for which 90% of the time they don't get the job. So they take a lot of shortcuts, they throw a lot of darts, and they come up with a number. And that's the reality of it. So it's difficult to argue that there's a real science to how to estimate and bid so the numbers come out to be the same. Okay, thank you. Craig.
Thank you.
Other-
Sorry, this one. All right. Thank you, Craig Brentley, County Legislator, District 8. I have a question from a constituent as well as a question of my own. One of my concerns is that, yes, we do have in the report a table saying, what has been considered, but obviously people are coming up with suggestions. Things are coming to you in live time. Is there a way to create a table or something that can be sent out periodically to a bunch of people or easily accessible on websites so that if somebody says, I think this commercial building, we can get the cops into faster. It's probably better suited and it's on, say, Route 9. And, somebody could write a response. This is suitable, this is not suitable, and why? Do we have that ability to do that?
To the working group, we would. We wouldn't want to do it on an individual basis and take something out that the group hasn't looked at. But once the working group gets formed, they can do that.
So to clarify that, so the working group isn't necessarily looking at this site as the end all be all, but they have to start with looking at all the properties available in the town of Poughkeepsie that.
What properties may have come available? We will have a list of what we have looked at. A couple other properties have been sent. This is the plan that we have in place right now. The working group is to look at it further, deeper, to see if it's the viable spot that we want to be, or if something else has come up. Is it somewhere where we want to change our direction and go to? But it's something that we have to move along quick. We can't keep waiting till the 11th hour and then something else comes and something else comes, because we have a police department and a court building that have to move. So the working group, we're going to give them like 60 to 90 days to look at what's there. At some point, we have to stop looking and start designing and getting finished with this project, because A, the cost is going up, and B, we have 80 some officers and court staff that we need to get out of that building. So that is our priority. So the goal is to look at this project, come up with more issues and answers of what people have. And people have sent a lot of different properties. And we can add to that list of, some of them have been repetitive. One of them was a half-acre lot. I mean, so some of them, a lot of people don't have full concept to what side the police department is over there. They just assume that it's a very small building, and what it entails inside the building is a lot bigger than what they are. So talking to some of the people that bought up some of these very small lots, it's like, it's not a suitable location. And the location people bought up here numerous times is the traffic and getting in and out. That is an issue in some spots on Route 9 also. So even though it may be a Route 9 location, it may not be the best location. That's why some of the ones in the beginning were taken off the table.
And that's why I think a comprehensive list that's easily accessible, it's, that it's updated by the town as things come in, that can be easily accessible on the website would help a lot, because that's a lot of the questions that are coming. And a lot of people are saying, well, this was considered this. There would be no question as to what was done, what was talked about, and what was considered if we had a readily available list.
You can add to the list, because there is, in the report is a list of
Correct.
the 6 we looked at, but the extras that the few people have called, not a lot. I've had one constituent been very good about looking. We will look at those. We will pass them on to the working group to look at.
But it's in a full report. I think just that piece separate as part of maybe on a page separated out so it's easily accessible. If it's, maybe some people have suggestions tonight. You look at them tomorrow, and maybe in 2 or 3 days, they're explained as to whether or not they would work readily available in one link.
I get what you're saying, but I'd like to leave that to the working group, and not to have different people doing different things, but correct. I get what your point is.
Because I'll tell you, at the county level, when we were doing one of the construction projects, people were throwing things around, and I know Ann Saylor released the list, and people saw the example, why this would or would not work. So I do think that's something we should consider.
Well, I agree. That's why I think the working group should do it. 3 different people shouldn't be putting the same piece together. When we get the group together, we'll get that list together, give it to them, so they can put it in place. So one person is sending the information out, not coming from 6 different people in 6 different directions, and somebody throws something out and, oh, Bill looked at it. Well, Bill wasn't the one that was looking at it. We want to make sure it's all put in the same place, but Craig, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and it would be, what you would do is, one person would fill out that form, and once that form is updated, it can live update to the website. I just think it would be probably the most productive thing we could do, especially because location, I mean, if we get, one of the big concerns about location is the construction time, turning a school, part of school campus into this is, more difficult than, say, if the perfect office space that could be more easily retrofitted, that could be a shorter timeline and that could be a lower budget. But I do think a list would be helpful in that. The other question was a constituent question, whether a referendum on this was discussed, or whether or not that was an avenue that
It was brought up and not decided at this time.
not decided at this time. Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Catherine Berkeley. I'm a resident on Boardman Road. I also happen to work at Our Lady of Lourdes High School. I'm a Poughkeepsie native, so I understand the importance of Dutchess Day School and that property as well. A question first, have you considered any Route 9 properties and perhaps ruled them out, or are they still in consideration, and what would they be?
We have looked at multiple Route 9 properties.
Okay, are we talking about ones
Four of
off
them.
of the list besides the IBM? I've seen that
Well,
list.
in the original study, 4 of those sites were on Route 9 of Route 9.
Okay, I know that someone had brought up the Dutchess Golf Club, and I believe you, Supervisor, had said that that was considered a green space.
No, what I said, we would like to keep it green. It wasn't considered a green space. As I've
Oh,
stated
you'd like-
multiple times, Locust
Okay.
Grove, the cemetery, IBM has a North 100, and that all tie almost perfectly into Vassar Farms when you work your way across.
Uh-huh.
So it's a piece of property we necessarily don't want to go into, but one of the residents had brought up, maybe the front piece. But as another resident brought up, that is one of the busiest, most congested pieces of Route 9 to get, cars in and out if we have to, and just, it'd be another light to that section because you have to go left, so.
Right, I do understand that traffic there could be a concern, but traffic is also going to be a concern on Boardman Road. So as someone had said earlier, the traffic in the morning for the high school backs up down Boardman. That's an issue. When you leave in the afternoon out to Spackenkill, that's an issue. The other thing is sometimes periodically Zach's Way gets closed down. When Zach's Way gets closed down, the traffic going down Boardman increases significantly. That's obviously a residential area. A lot of families out there, kids and walkers, and the traffic down there is posing a problem, even for just those small timeframes that Zach's Way is closed. So then adding this, now we're adding more traffic to a residential area. This is, for me, a major topic because this is my home. Putting this facility, I understand that Poughkeepsie Day School the property itself might be a great property. It's not the proper location. You're putting this in the middle of all residential areas. It will change the dynamic of where I live. I bought my home to raise my daughter, who is 5, in a peaceful location, and this will significantly change that. That's a concern for me, a major concern, which is why I've been involved and will continue to be involved. I think there's a lot of other possibilities, and I'm grateful to hear that we're willing to consider other things. I think the idea about a table so that it's very transparent. What have we looked at? Is it a potential site or not would be fantastic. Then it's transparent and clear as to what, you know, what's considered and what's not.
It isn't, I said, the original properties are in the report.
I understand there is, but there's others. So like the 44 Kmart Plaza that they just
It's
demolished.
not a landfill.
So that's ruled out. So we can't do what the gentleman here, the architect, was saying about laying down putting a new pad down and considering it.
The thing that I was talking about was for the criteria of a warehouse.
Mhm.
This is an essential facility. One of the requirements is it has a 15% greater lateral force restraint than other buildings. You don't get good lateral restraint when you're built on mush.
I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that. I do think, though, that being in a more commercial area is the right way to go. I think from what I've heard tonight, the concern, I thought it was going to be mostly about taxes and the increase in taxes. And of course, that's a major concern for us New Yorkers. But we do understand that this needs to be moved. The day school location in the middle of our homes is not the location for this project. So I'm excited about the working group. I'm going to volunteer to be a part of that. I've got some ideas here about other places, and I'm hoping we can move forward and find a better, more suitable location all around the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just have two simple.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you for the chance to speak and for all the information you've imparted tonight. I have two quick questions. Where can I find the report that's been referred to over and over again? Is that at the town website? Okay. And secondly, I was intrigued that the Poughkeepsie Day School has 30 acres and it would be embellished by community services other than a police court and a police station and town court. But that ideally you'd need at least 4 or 5 acres. Minimally, I'm saying. So earlier, a gentleman mentioned a spot that was near the Marist campus that was contaminated. It was near the lots location. When you found out that it was contaminated, did you immediately dismiss it, or did you look into what it would take to clean up that contaminated site?
We didn't even look at that site when he asked it's contaminated. There's an old Staples on there that's been closed for that reason, so we didn't even look at the
Okay,
application.
so that's an option to find out, what the possibilities might be for meeting requirements if it were
It's something to look at,
decontaminated.
but I
Yeah.
have a real issue with, we're on a contaminated site now. To move the town police department to another contaminated site, I don't think is in our best interest.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not gotten cleaned up there from all the commercial properties that have been there before, but it's not a site that I wouldn't be interested in looking at. The fact that it is contaminated and the time frame also, by the time you clean up a site, you're going out another few years to try to remediate the site, and move forward. That does not make it a amenable site, I don't think.
well, we don't know what it's contaminated by or the extent of contamination. But thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Call. I am a resident of Ward 6, actually live on Boardman Road. So we've come to these board meetings several times and we've gone back and forth about a lot of things. And I'm wondering about a timeline for making a decision on what are we really talking about over here? So sometimes we're talking about a police station and a courthouse facility. Sometimes we're talking about moving town hall. Sometimes we're talking about rec facilities. So when we have this working group, number one, on what criteria will you choose members to the working group? Number two, what is the working group going to be tasked with? I really feel like that person, who goes to a store. I go to buy a toaster oven, right? I go into the store and I realize, oh my gosh, if I just spend $5 more, I could also buy a refrigerator. Oh, the refrigerator usually costs $100. I can get for $5. And if I do this, I could do that too. And I could do this. And I maybe come home without my toaster oven. But the problem is, this is not just the town's money, this is our money. Every single taxpayer, it's our money. So when the town is saying we haven't quite decided about what we're gonna do, I think it's time that the town board and the supervisor set a timeline. By this date, we are going to make a decision on what we need. We're not because the architects are telling us that the price is going to skyrocket, but because of what we need and what we can afford.
As I stated in the beginning of the meeting, the working group will be formed in the next couple of weeks, and they would have 60 to 90 days to get complete. Poughkeepsie Day School was the original project that was put in place when we found the location. This is where we had planned on being. When we came in and residents came in, they said, please look at something else, take a step back. That's what we're doing here. We're doing what you asked. You were here. You asked us to do this. We're taking a step back to form a working group. And if there are any other properties out there, we will look at them. We are not locked in the day school, but the property on the table now is the day school. If the
Right.
working group comes up with something better, nicer, more affordable, and you brought up, originally when the plan was with Arlington Fire, when we saw the number way back then, we took that off the table. Then
So-
when we saw Town Hall, what it was gonna cost, we took that off the table and let's get back. The reason recreation is in there is because look at the day school property, it's available. There is a gym and there is a theater there. It's like, you go and you get something. If we look for another location, they are not things on the table. It's a police court. This happened to come out for recreation because it was available in that location.
Okay, so are we all clear here that the working group, when it is being tasked with looking for another location, they're looking for a location for a police facility and a courthouse? That's it.
Correct.
So we're all agreed on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you
That's it.
find a piece of property, that had something else on it, it doesn't
So-
mean you're
so
running
that's-
it off for that amenity.
So why would we not, if that's what we are looking for and that's what we need at this moment, why are we not removing the Poughkeepsie Day School property from our sort of possibility of options that we have? Because this is not what we need. This is not what we want right now. I'm very familiar with the Poughkeepsie Day School. I know that building in and out, those buildings in and out. Your architects, I wonder how many buildings have come up in this country where you've had a courthouse, police facility, and a rec center all in the same space? Are there other examples around?
We're not prepared to answer that because we've not searched out what other people have done. We have responded to the circumstances of this site. There were no other sites, and this site came up, and lo and behold, as a bonus, you could end up with this recreational stuff.
Right,
And it
penny wise,
wasn't that
pound
the
foolish.
recreational stuff drove the deal.
Right, and then that's what I'm asking you to consider, is perhaps not be led by the bonus. Perhaps let's just focus on the task at hand. And I think now this evening, we've agreed that the task at our hand is just to find a site for a police facility and a town court. And we all agree, it seems, if that is the task at hand, that the Poughkeepsie Day School is not the facility, not the space. That's just the simple logic of it.
I'll
I don't
I'll
think logic
disagree.
holds.
Well,
Yeah.
well, when you're the taxpayer,
And you also have to,
Pay taxes. Jay pays taxes,
Yeah.
Ann pays tax.
wonderful.
Do you think we want to volunteer to raise our own taxes?
It's not just a question of taxes only. It's also a question of that particular place where it's located.
and that-
You've
People
worked
making the
time and again.
decision are elected and they all pay taxes and live here.
and the working group will look through that. They may come out, the working group could come out and say, this is what we want. Maybe they look at this project and say, we take the recreation piece out of it and we move things around. It's not off the table, but it's not our solid number one choice, is what I'm telling you. Let the working group go through this and look at it. This group here, a lot of these people in this group asked for us to come forward and put a group together. We are doing what they asked. Let
Right.
them do their job and come back with their conclusion. We're not going to manage that working group. Whoever's in charge of, we will be part of it. We're not going to say, this is what you look at. If they have other pieces, they're going to look at other pieces.
But don't you, as the town supervisor, have the responsibility to decide what is being built?
Yeah,
And I think we've agreed on that, right, today? that these are the only two things that need to be built.
Yes.
Regardless of whatever site we have.
But no,
Even if it's Poughkeepsie Day School, we're not looking at rec, even if the space is available, even if actually we're not
you
using
just said, made a
buildings.
good point. Poughkeepsie Day School has rec. We're not building it. It is there. You know, and no offense, there are many residents have called also that think that we need some kind of indoor rec. That is not our priority. Our priority is that building over there. If there is an added piece to this that we can get, and this working group make it back and say, this is a good location. This is what you're getting. We may sit back down, take something out and end up in the same building and take the theater out, take the gym out, take everything out and get nothing out of it. That's maybe the final verdict, but I think the working group needs to have the time to sit down. We're not going to make that decision here today. Our decision is to listen to people today, get a working group forward, have them sit down, give them a time frame, and move forward. Get our police court people in another bill.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's our bottom goal.
Take this as meaning that we're really focused on the fact that we're really looking for something for police and a town court.
And that has
Nothing
never
more than
changed.
that.
That's, no, that's original, but we're
great.
not
I'm
going to
really
another
focused on
site
that.
looking for a gym or a theater or anything like that. This happened to be there.
This
We're-
happens to be there, but really in the scheme of things and the way PDS is designed, that means you're not really using Kenyon Hall for anything. That means you have the theater on one hand and you have maybe the great room you're going to use as some kind of recreational space. The classroom is what's going to happen. The couple of classrooms over there, not so many classrooms in Gilkison. But I suppose you figured out how you're going to be moving residents, court facility. I mean, essentially you're going to be destroying the entire one part of PDS, the natural part, to put up a new structure, right? So if that's essentially what you're doing, putting up a new structure,
That's
why
exactly-
PDS? Why the additional cost? I hope you'll think of a timeline about this. I hope you'll stick to what we need, which is just a police facility and a town court right now. Thank you.
There's a lot of concern about whether and why you've looked at various other sites. I wanted to just clarify if your report books contain a full explanation of the other sites that you have looked at and elaborates the reasons that you rejected those sites. You've referenced that several times, and I just wanted to know if all that information exists in one point, especially given what's been said about the priority for the working group, which is to find the right site, which one that would contain just the police and the court. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to clarify, the report that's currently on the town website, which was the 2019 study, I believe it's section 5, but site analysis section has all 6 sites, plans of how the buildings fit on the site with egress to whatever roads they connect to, pros and cons
Okay,
of why the sites were looked at originally and what the determination was.
okay. All on the website.
Yes.
Take a couple more.
Hi there. I'm so frustrated sitting here listening over and over about traffic, and I feel like you're very dismissive of this issue. And I don't understand it. We're sitting here and you're pushing us. We got to move. We got to do this. We got to go quick. We got to. And we're asking you questions. What is your plan to do something about that? Something should have been done when they put credit union up there. Something should have been done when they put Lord's there. A little green arrow doesn't help. Do you know that it's wrong to sit and not make it through a light when you're going straight? That you can't make it through a green light when you're going straight? That's a problem. And we have no, even if you're coming from Vassar Road and going up, there needs to be a right turn lane for all that traffic going down there. There needs to be an entire left turn lane, a circle, something. And here, I feel like you're pushing us. We have to do this, we have to do this. And we can't even get an answer of what are they going to do about the roads? I specifically emailed you and asked you, are you having a representative from the New York State Department of Transportation to tell us what they're going to do? We deserve to know.
Not at this time. There is a traffic study with recommendations in the study.
I know you say that all the time. So if you're so studied about this and so versed, we're here, we're waiting. Tell us, what are the options for that? What is their
Right turn and
plan?
left turn lanes in that study, but we could go further with the DOT when we get to that point of whether they're going to help us fund changing that. We
Right,
have to
but
do ourselves.
do you not think, and it's not just residents right there, I'm local nearby, everybody that travels that road, it's a main connector to Route 9, where there's the only things that are viable on Route 9 are up that way anymore anyway. And when is that going to happen? You should be able to tell us if you want us to move so fast and to get this done, that needs to be done before you do anything with this building. You can't wait till after. We can't even go up and down that road now. So I think we deserve to be told, this is what we would do if we move forward, and this is when it will happen.
If you
When are we going to be
contacted
told
us
that?
prior to this, or your council person in reference to that traffic
I
issue?
emailed you.
No, recently.
I
Recently.
emailed you last week.
And I told you back that we have.
You
done
told me
traffic
there's a report.
for-
I think if you guys have studied this so much, you should be able to share with us. What are the ideas in that report?
I'll give you a copy of the report. It's right on the website. I will give you a copy of the report.
You cannot speak to us? I think it's
I'm not
fair
gonna
that
sit
we
here
expect.
And lie to you if I don't know the exact right turn, left turns. If you want to come in, I will get your report. will sit
What I
down.
want is to be guaranteed that something's going to be done with that roads before you even consider doing something with this project. You can't wait till after. We can't go on that road now. Do you drive up and down that road every day like I do?
Yes, I do.
Right, and you know you have to sit there and it's dangerous. Whether he lives across the street
I do.
or if you come from down and everybody's trying to get out
This is
from.
a state road on your note, not tied to the Poughkeepsie Day School. This is something, if it needs to be addressed, we need to address, as you said, with our state legislators to get with the DOT because they would be the ones that fund it. We can recommend.
Correct. And so when are you planning? I'm saying to you, you're having them here telling us we need to do this, we need to move, we need to get going. Why do we not have a representative from the New York State Transportation
We
Authority?
haven't made a final decision yet on where we're going with the building. This is a working group to see if this is the spot we're going. We have sent the.
So you can't tell us and you don't have people to tell us. So I'm saying it's very frustrating to sit here being pushed. I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm not debating that whether this is the right place. But I am debating that we as residents should expect that you would consider that first, how you're going to impact every person who goes through there. And I would guarantee everybody drives in this county on that road.
And as I
So
said,
do we
it
not deserve to know what's going to happen before you move forward?
It is. It's in that study of what it is. I will sit with you, sit here and talk. I can show you the study. I can show you what it's.
So why can't you share it with everybody?
It's here. I have the study. Yeah.
It's
on the
me.
webpage.
It's me. I don't know.
No, it's not you. I'm not going to sit here and try to go through a whole study on a traffic study with.
I don't want you to go through a study. I want you to tell us, yes, something's going to be done with the road. Yes, it's going to be done before you do this project and that we are going to not have to
Traffic study says we need to do something because it would be an F.
before
fix
you
for-
do.
Correct. We would have to do something.
See,
Yeah.
that wasn't so hard.
That's it. But it's in the study of what it is. And once the DOT looks at it, they may have a different feel of what it was, of what we can actually do. They may have a change, but the traffic engineer says in that study that something has to be done because it brings it to a grade F, if I'm correct. That's why I don't want to say things that aren't 100% correct. It brings it to a different grade that if it was to be there, it would be downgraded. And I can remember a resident coming in here when they built the assisted living home that had an issue with that intersection and addressed in the state and nothing got done back then. But
Well, I don't want it to turn out of whatever their last address to it was is a green arrow, which does nothing.
No.
When everyone has to sit and wait for that one car that wants to make a turn and nobody can go
it
through the
needs a
light.
major upgrade for the rights and the lefts there in general.
Correct.
And I spoke to somebody today. I said they had an accident on 376 a few weeks ago and it brought that road to a standstill. Because of that, because there's no right turn, left turns. As you said, you stand in one spot where you should be going straight and you can't go. It's
Yeah.
something the state needs to address, which actually we've figured out through this because going up there on a day-to-day basis, you just assume that's the way the traffic is. It's something we have to address with the state, we're addressing
But
sidewalks.
it definitely has to happen before. I mean,
No,
you're
it's,
talking about, I didn't even know about all of this recreational stuff. I mean, we're talking about now, it's not bad because it's schools. It's St. Martin, it's Lourdes, it's Poughkeepsie Day, it's Back and Kill School. So those are limited hours that it really messes you up. Now you're talking about all day, the traffic that comes in and out for business. Now you're talking about all evenings for recreational needs. And I just didn't feel like it seemed as big a deal to you as it seems to everybody else here.
oh, it is a big deal.
Right.
Ju-
And that
just
it
the
needs to
thought-
be addressed preemptively to this.
And I said,
getting done.
I hate to keep using words, the study tells us something has to be done. We cannot do it without doing something because it will cause a problem. And I think if we do something or do nothing, something still has to be addressed there.
Correct,
Yeah.
because it should have been done
Yeah.
before. You're right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a resident. I live on Coburn Drive, and I keep hearing this work group. The work group is here. The work group is another group of people.
It's another group, we'll be forming.
It's another group of people.
Residents, maybe some with architectural experience, design experience, real estate experience. A small group of people that will put together, some residents, a couple of staff from inside town
Oh,
hall.
so they exist now.
No, they don't.
Oh, they
If
don't.
you would like to be part of it, you can send me an email and what your interest is, and we'll consider you for that position. The
Okay.
board member will make it, the board will make it in the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
A
thank you.
decision on who's gonna be in
Yeah,
there.
I gotta keep hearing work.
No.
That's in,
No, people have asked us to put together a working group.
Okay.
To look at the project, to look it over, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
You will.
Good evening. One of the things I'd like to first do is acknowledge the town of Poughkeepsie police officers who are here this evening, because we've talked a lot about a building. And we would not have to be talking about a building unless we were supported by the town of Poughkeepsie police officers. We're talking about real people here. So they do deserve a good, safe working environment. And we as taxpayers are willing to do that for them. You have a formidable task ahead of you, and we appreciate the work that you have been doing and will continue to do. But one of the things that I would also like to speak to is the traffic. I am not a resident of the Boardman Road area. I am familiar with it because my children did go to Our Lady of Lourdes High School, so I am familiar with it. But I am a resident of Dutchess Turnpike, Route 44. I live 2/10 of a mile from Eastdale. It is a new development on Route 44, and I know a traffic study was done prior to the building of that development. It is a state road, but I would strongly urge you to do a better job on your traffic study, because the traffic on Route 44 is a nightmare since Eastdale has been built. There are traffic accidents repeatedly. I have the town of Poughkeepsie telephone number memorized. It is something that will happen with Boardman Road as well. It affects the community. It affects my neighborhood. It will affect the residents and the community of Boardman Road. Repeatedly this evening, you've been spoken to about the traffic. It will increase. The traffic on Route 44 has increased exponentially. An accident happens down at Eastdale, traffic is backed up past a mile, and accidents occur with people waiting in traffic, people rear-ending each other. I'm only here to say, do a better job on the traffic study. It's important. It affects the community in more ways than one. Thank you very much, and thank you for your efforts.
Good afternoon. Like everyone else who has spoken, I stand in opposition to the relocation and planned development of the Poughkeepsie Day School site. Not only will this be a logistics nightmare concerning traffic, location, and construction, it will be detrimental to the health of every town employee and police officer who will be working out of there. The elephant in the room that no one is addressing is the 105-foot cell tower at Poughkeepsie Day School. 3 full rows of 12 antennas, more on the way, running all on the 5G spectrum, pumping out EMF radiation, thousands, tens of thousands, and in some cases like the town water department where they've added a 4th row, 16 towers, 16 antennas, hundreds of thousands of times higher than the 2 microwatts per square meter that the Bio-Initiative report of doctors and scientists have set the limit at for healthy living conditions. The town board had promised to have a telecom code in place by the end of last summer, which would protect its citizens and officers from the overproliferation of these towers. They kept saying they're working on it, and to this day, nothing is finished. Yet somehow the same boards continue to unanimously approve tower after tower, antenna after antenna, with a complete blind eye towards scientific fact. When questioned, they all parrot the same thing. Our hands are tied, we have to approve them. The latest addition of a 3rd row of antennas and 6 radio heads and over voltage protection and housing for the cables approved in August of this year at Poughkeepsie Day. My home is 580 feet from these monstrosities. My family has been suffering the effects of EMF radiation sickness that I would not wish on my worst enemy. The town knows all this, but will push forward with more antennas because they will be a steady source of revenue for many years, all while the town employees, officers, and residents of the surrounding areas are irradiated 24/7. No wonder they don't want any oversight, all while your taxes go up. Property and home values will fall at least 20 to 30% because of nearby towers, as more states have made laws to disclose when selling your home the nearby proximity of these towers and antennas. The town board had a chance to retain the best cell tower attorney in the United States to write our code, which would have been done for a cost of $8,500. Which you denied and you wanted to do in-house with Lisa Cobb, who has absolutely no telecom experience. $8,500, to which some citizens even offered to pay out of pocket, and it was still denied. Your obligations are to protect the citizens and the taxpayers first, above all, and especially to the police officers. If you think the health is bad and the issues they had there where the landfill was, wait till they move into there, okay? That's something I wouldn't wish on anyone. You have time to write a 250-page code on subletting Airbnbs and the upcoming marijuana dispensaries, listing such stuff as how opaque the windows have to be and how we can't be offensive to the public. What's more offensive than 12 antennas raining radiation down on all the children that have been going to school there, and then you advertise recreation sites for the public to use? Who's going to want to take their kids there and be irradiated 24/7? We implore you to please do the right thing. You had an opportunity and this would have been settled a long time ago. The code should have been in place before you even considered this move, especially if it was about protecting the police officer's health. You know, as I understand it, the one you got right outside here is pouring off radiation. My meter goes nuts every time we bring it in here, and yet nothing is done about that. I know many people, there's several members of this town board who are sick with cancers and other ailments, okay? You're moving directly out of the frying pan into the fire.
Thank you. Say one more.
Doreen Tignanelli, live on Colburn Drive. My husband spoke previously about the traffic. First of all, Councilman Carlos, you said the board pays taxes too. Do you think you want to raise your own taxes? As I pointed out before, the board does receive a salary. You're not doing this as a volunteer. You get medical expenses, medical benefits, and if you decline those, I believe you get $4,000 a year for that. So that's really not in the same category. The other thing is, oh, and Jay, you had said about originally it was a consolidation potentially with Arlington Fire District, and it was too expensive. You took them off, out of the picture. Well, the Arlington Fire District wasn't interested in the consolidation with the town anyway, so that was never really, on the table. The traffic, I mean, it just does not belong
in a residential area. And your consultant said, you know, that recreation and other things were a bonus. Well, maybe it's a bonus to you because you don't live there. And, you know, I've lived on Colburn almost 41 years now. And I've had several council members, including Mr. Carlos, say, oh, you forgot what the traffic was like when IBM was there. No, I didn't forget. Okay, and IBM, it was a specific time, like 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning and about 4:30 to 5:30. That was it. And that was basically, you know, the extent of the traffic. Now you have the library, you have the credit union offices, you have Lord's High School. Sometimes you go past Lord's around 2 o'clock. One day I counted 70 cars in line waiting to pick kids up. So you have to deal with that. And now you're talking about all these other uses. You know, you're talking about, you have the court, you have the police, you have all these, what you see as recreational opportunities really is the problem for people who live there. And as far as the DOT is concerned, come on, Jay, how many times over the years, you know, not just when you've been supervisor, you've been a board member, like when they were doing the Raymond Avenue, people would say, you know, things about dealing with the DOT, and even the board members would say, oh, you know, it's a state road, you have to do, you know, what the DOT wants. Well, you know, we don't know that the DOT is going to agree to any improvements here. Years ago, we did have an issue with the assisted living. We were concerned about traffic in that area. Our state assemblyman, even though he thought it was an issue too, couldn't, you know, said he couldn't do anything to help us about it, tried with the DOT. So you're putting a lot of faith in the DOT, which I don't know if it's warranted. So, and the traffic study did say that with the turn signal, that there would be a degradation in service. So, you know, to me, this is a traffic nightmare. I don't know that you can count on the DOT, and you know, it's not something that you're going to be able to address afterwards, because forget it. It just won't happen. Something that needs to be taken care of first. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today and all their opinions. I mean, we will get this up on the website as soon as possible. So if anybody would like to go back and watch it, we'll be putting a working group together. If anybody is interested in being in the working group, please email my office and we'll pass it on to the board members, recommendations on the different bodies that have asked to be part of this process. And we will get together with a working group and have our next meeting with them in place, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks, once we get them appointed. So we want to move this process forward because, as many residents have said, this is #1 priority, is to get our police and our court facility moved as soon as possible. So thank everybody for coming out tonight. Get any questions or any other things or any other options or other buildings you think you may not have seen or may not have looked at, feel free to either call my office, email my office, we'll meet you. We have been as open to questions and comments that people have sent in so far, which I think some have been very positive. Some of the locations they've sent out, there are some that we didn't look at. And some of the locations people may think that are great are just not available. They're not always available. So thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. You got real quick, Michelle, because everybody's been here since 4 o'clock. It's been over 2 hours, and I'd like to thank them all for coming out.
My mind is very skeptical these days. You know, I was just really wondering if there was a demographic study being done. When I turned around and I see all these gray hairs, okay, I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe it's related to wanting to take that entire area and remove it from the residential kind of, you know, planning and make it more of a commercial or some other mix. But this is an opportunity for people with gray hair to live their lives in the homes that they spent so much time and money trying to keep, and making it unsustainable for them, either through the RF microwave radiation or the traffic or the noise. And people are going to want to get out of there. They're going to want to sell. And then you'll have, you know, the developers coming in, buying the land on pennies on the dollar. I mean, when I turned around, I saw the gray hair. I was thinking to myself, there must have been demographic studies done to know that these people are going to want to exit. And where they go, we don't know, but it's going to be really uncomfortable for them to stay. And my last comment is really about Agenda 2030. The whole idea is that home ownership, single home families are not the thing that this big wide world really wants anymore. They want us living in small little apartments. And this is one way to do it, is bring something in that really doesn't fit with the community. And, you know, like all along on Route 44, all the little homeowners, they're getting out of there. They can't stand the traffic. So that really, that deceit that real estate developers are participating in, I know it goes on. Of course, I don't know it's going on for this community, but I'm really sad for them. I'm not a homeowner, but if I were, I'd be so upset.
Thanks.
So that's my closing statement. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Again, thanks everybody for coming out tonight.